That we are trying to help you know everything you need to about money laundering. The alleged theft of millions of dollars from President Ramaphosa's farm in Limpopo has put the spotlight on money laundering. Former spy boss Arthur Fraser opened a case against Ramaphosa. The president confirming the robbery but denies any wrongdoing, saying the money was from the sale of game on his farm. So just how bad is the situation in our country? Well, let's bring into the conversation Advocate Glynnis Breytenbach, a member of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice. Advocate, morning to you. I really appreciate your time in speaking to us this morning. How big an issue do you think money laundering is in our country? Are we a money laundering haven? Good morning.
Good morning to you and to everybody. Yes, indeed, South Africa is vulnerable to money laundering. We have a sophisticated economy, we have a sophisticated banking system, and that presupposes that you are then also an ideal climate, if you will, for money laundering. So South Africa is targeted for money laundering, and we certainly do have a money laundering problem in South Africa. That being said, I don't think we're a haven for it. And that being said, we have an extensive and very strong suite of money laundering legislation to combat money laundering. And it's internationally recognized as being a very good legislation in place to deal with money laundering. The Financial Action Task Force acknowledges that up front, yes?
It does. International Financial Action Task Force does acknowledge that up front, but also raises various red flags. Speaking to Professor Keith Engel earlier, Advocate, saying that, yes, the laws are in place, but once again, it's the application and the enforcement of laws that cause the issue. Would you agree or disagree?
Oh, yes, that's certainly the problem. The laws are there. We have a very strong suite, as I've said, of money laundering and anti-corruption legislation. Very good. What we fall short on, sadly short, is the implementation. So we have a very poor record of investigation, an exceptionally poor record of prevention, and a poor record of prosecution. So while we have the legislation, we have nothing that's backing it up at this point. And to that end, the Financial Action Task Force has considered putting us on their grey list if in 2023 if we don't pull up our socks. So it's for the law enforcement agencies in South Africa to now enforce these laws. We have them. They're there. They're good. They're efficient and effective as long as they're implemented. So the police need to investigate, and the prosecution needs to prosecute. There must be consequences, visible consequences for money laundering. It must be felt. That's the only way to stop it, to deter it. The Financial Intelligence Centre, again, is a good piece, is a good body with a good piece, strong piece of legislation that is supposed to assist in this combating of money laundering. So they must come to the party, and the banks, and the Reserve Bank, and to a certain extent the revenue services. So that complement of law enforcement must be more efficiently dealt with if we're going to combat money laundering in South Africa.
So do you think we become a country where criminals, Advocate, think they've got a better chance of getting away with it in our country? And this is why we're seeing this jump in money laundering cases as well. You're part of the Portfolio Committee on Justice, of course. You mentioned the police. But when we start seeing numbers like 25 million rand being laundered by the Gupta family, it doesn't leave much trust in the eye of the public for our officials to get this right.
Well, certainly we're seen as a country, and justifiably so, that where it's easy to get away with money laundering, with criminality in general, because there are currently not a lot of consequences for poor behaviour. So antisocial behaviour, it goes by unpunished to a very large degree because the police have been hollowed out almost completely. The National Prosecuting Authority has been hollowed out almost completely, and both are in a process of rebuilding, but that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and will certainly not happen overnight. So it's something that we have to work towards, and of course it's deeply concerning. We haven't had a high-profile money laundering matter in court for Lord knows how many years. The same goes for corruption. So, we need to see people in the dock, and we need to see people being convicted, and we need to see consequences for antisocial behavior. And at the moment, we're just not cutting it.
Yeah, no, certainly not. I think hollowed out is the right way to describe what's been happening with the SAPS and the NPA. You're not alone, Advocate, in suggesting that's where we need to get our focus right, SAPS and NPA, to chase down and convict money launderers. But for the moment, I thank Advocate Glynnis Breytenbach, Member of Parliament's Justice Committee, as we continue with our money laundering focus. Where does it begin? How does it actually happen? The question, though, of course, is where does it end? We'll stay on that focus for you throughout this morning.